back to my favorite of all the Transformer lines, Cybertron. And I figured it's been a while since we looked at anything larger than a deluxe, so let's go ahead and rectify that, and we will cover one of my favorite Voyagers from the Cybertron line. This is Evac. Evac himself being one of the big characters, or what was supposed to be one of the big characters, not as much as I think they wanted, but he was one of the convoys in Japan, Galaxy Force Live Convoy, so technically one of the planetary leaders in the series, which makes him stand out just a wee bit, aside from the fact he's also pretty distinct, as rescue helicopters are actually fairly rare. You get military attack helicopters, Black Hawks and all that all the time, but a rescue chopper, like something that's made purely for well, rescue, yeah, that's a little bit unique. So let's take a look and see what makes him unique beyond that. First off, yep, he is in a very vibrant shade of yellow. It's a much richer yellow than, say, Bumblebee, which gets to the obnoxious level. This is nice and subdued. It's a little bit on the dark side, and it does actually help. It's a nice, rich color I like. And there's this powder blue all over him, some in molded plastic, some in somewhat glittered paint. Gives it this kind of frosted look that's actually fairly interesting. It is mostly paint, though, as you can see, little bits of yellow showing through. This is back in the day when, and I guess that day has arrived again now that I think of it, when Hasbro's releases always skipped paint compared to Takara's, and you can see that pretty obviously on here. You can see little bits of yellow showing through along here, as well as down the center windshield. This is stuff that Takara didn't really miss, but Hasbro did, because they thought they could cut budget in a few places. It's annoying. It gives them this kind of patchwork look, unfortunately, but for the most part, I do like the color. The light blue and the yellow is a fairly unique color scheme, especially with the dark blue mixed in. And even so, there's still a lot of paint on this guy. You can see, like, all that pale blue, that's all paint. All of the white, that's paint. It's pretty extensive, just how much deco went onto this toy, right down to the rescue printed on the side. If we look over here, we can start to look at some of the features. For instance, landing gear that I will go ahead and fold up just to do away with, just to get it out of the way. Can I? Sorry, I haven't played with this toy in a while. I'm trying to make sure I can fold that up completely without breaking anything. All right, that cleans it up a little bit. You can see on the side we do have a rescue winch, which does not have room to go all the way down when the landing gear is out, which kind of makes sense when you think about it. But this is where you start getting into features, and man, this guy is loaded with them. For starters, the rescue winch actually technically works. It does descend down on a string, and the little hook on the end does seem like it can actually grapple onto something. However, it's not very bendable plastic, so I would be hesitant to actually attempt it. The neater part is automatic retraction. This could have been easy, just make a little wind-up thing. I'm glad Hasbro took the extra step and actually put the spring inside there. It's very, very nice. Meanwhile, you also have this big rotor and this ominous-looking red bar, which if I press, gives it a good spin. And this is the kind of rotor motor I like as a toy gimmick. You can just push this in all day, all day, all day, and it just keeps the rotor going, it keeps the speed up, and it's nice and quiet. This is excellent. I love this. It's so much better than a stupid ratcheting one you get on deluxes. That I always liked. That was always good. And, of course, we do have the Cyber Key slot, which I might as well show you in this mode. Since this was a convoy in Japan, that does mean you get a golden key with him, this being the Earth Deco, or the Earth variety, which is a little bit more plain than some of the others, but yeah, I kind of like the eclipse there on the front. Kind of neat. We insert that into the back, and a big surprise, twin missile launchers flip out from the sides. They do a good job of blending in with the vehicle mode, I think. Like, just as like that sweeping back aerodynamic look kind of keeps them a little bit hidden, but you can still pretty much tell, yeah, he's got missile launchers aside. And yes, two very large missiles sticking out here in the front. So that's nice, and it's a nice and simple gimmick, but hey, it gives them a lot more firepower, so that all works out. So that's the vehicle mode. It's pretty nice, other than you got a few parts where the engineering didn't quite cover everything up. But beyond that, I always did really like the look of this vehicle. So let's get him to robot, and we'll see what else he can do for us. We can start by popping everything open here, because he's got a lot of pegs that hold this main chunk of vehicle together. Come on. There we go. We can start with the legs, which are going to fold down here. Fold them all the way over into that tab. With that, rotate them down at the hip, pull out, rotate. Ooh, nice ratchets. We can hear them already. And then flip the legs out like so. And the heels also have to go. Come on, the heels have to come out too. There's no real tab on these to get the heels out easily, so that's a little bit annoying. Moving on to the arms. Fold out from here. And we don't rotate the shoulders around. We just kind of, oh, hook. No, stay out. Don't mess up the transformation now. Those peg into the side real nice. Arms come forward like this. Then rotate all that down. Here, we gotta fold up the rotor blades and rotate this. Even it out on the arm. With that, flip out the hands. Come on. Come on. Open up the door. Don't make me look stupid. I do that myself easily all the time. Might as well rotate this around too, just so the hook's to the front. And from there, we have a bunch of stuff we have to do here. The rear section has to completely split open. Goes behind the shoulders. This becomes a backpack, but it also has a rod attached, which, when pushed up, extends the head. And then we can peg all of that in and enjoy our completed look at Evac in his full robot mode. This is where I really think the toy shines. Like, from a fairly solid looking helicopter, he comes up to a very nicely proportioned, very heroic looking robot mode. Always really like this, with the big wide rotor blade wings on the back, the heavy legs and arms. He's got this really solid look to him and does a great job transforming, because so much of that robot detail just did not get seen in vehicle mode, which is good. Going to take a look at the head now. He did have a rather unique head sculpt back in the day. There's a lot that look kind of like this now, but I do like the tall crest. I do like the big horns, and the yellow face is a little bit different. So that all works out nice and well. He is a very heroic looking Autobot, all things considered. As we can see, he does have a lot more of the dark blue going on now, both in paint and plastic. You can see the hips now exposed, the arms all dark, and then along through the chest, a lot of paint to get that looking correct. Very, very nicely done. While a lot of the details do carry over, especially the legs, the torso itself does have a lot more going on. There's more red paint exposed, a lot of extra little hoses and wires and molding lines aplenty, which all work out exceptionally well. I do really like how this guy looks. Can actually slim him down a little bit. We want to fold out the I think hang on, I think I accidentally stuck them in by stuck them in by leaving that out. Now, looking the toy over, I will tell you he does retain all of his gimmicks, though you might find him a little bit more restricted. Obviously, the winch doesn't get in the way of anything. You can still use the rescue hook just fine. This is where it gets a little bit iffy. He does still, this part does actually still work. You can actually spin it around. It does create kind of a weaponized blade look, but that big blade does kind of get in the way, especially with these big things in the way. There's two ways of solving this, however. One, just unpegs, so you can set it off to the side and just don't have any kind of restrictions whatsoever. Or, what I like, these sections can completely fold down, and now we've exchanged that big kind of seeker wing looking thing for something more to like a cape look, which makes me, as someone who displays these collections in a shelf, very, very happy, because this is way easier to actually put in with a collection of figures. Also, the backpack, because it's on that long hinge, does still work. I can bring this up and actually reuse the cyber key again, which I will go ahead and do just to show off. There we go. It does have an upward angle now, but you can release the missiles here as well. You will notice that in like With his feet flat and everything, he does kind of want to tilt backward a little bit. You can't adjust this with the heels. There is enough stiffness in that joint in order to accommodate that. But beyond that, he does have kind of a weird stance to him sometimes, so you just have to watch out for it. For articulation, he does do pretty good, but he does have a few strange little quibbles to him. The head does rotate all the way around. It's even better when you actually lock the backpack in. You have ratcheted joints here, ratcheted shoulders in universal directions, a bicep rotation above the elbow, a 90-degree elbow bend, which is always a nice thing to have. Wrists are on a hinge, so no flip out there. You do have the waist joint, which you might have to lift up the landing gear to actually rotate around, but it is there and fully working, ratcheted. The hips is where it gets a little bit annoying because he's ratcheted hip too, but it's one of those weird detents where it's really wide apart. So while he does have universal movement in the hip, you either have a very wide leg stance or a very narrow legged, and neither one looks terribly natural. That's one of the big drawbacks to this particular toy. He does have a thigh rotation above the knee. The knee itself has a nice solid ratchet to the 90-degree, which just caused one of the launchers to flip up. And of course you do have the transformation hinges in the heels, which if yours are firm enough can adjust the balance just enough. See, can you actually hold it in his hand? Not really. There's no friction to it. But that, my friends, is Cybertron Evac. He's a pretty solid figure and still one of my favorite designs from the Cybertron series. What I like about him is how many little gimmicks he has that doesn't really get in the way. You know, missile launcher, winch, spinning blade. He still manages a very nice transformation and a very good looking robot mode in spite of having all these tricks attached to him. This is the way a gimmicky toy should be done. He does have a couple of issues here and there. The wide ratchets are probably chief among them. But beyond that, I've always really liked this figure and all of its various incarnations over the years. So if you haven't picked them up, there's plenty of options out there. Go ahead, pick your favorite color and enjoy. This one is usually one I end up recommending out of Cybertron if you're looking for something with a little bit of character all his own.
Wow, 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 wow.